Welcome to the Church Podcast, talking all things ministry so you can do church better. I'm your host, Christopher Wesley, and I'm really excited about this conversation with Scott today. Scott Williams is the founder of Catholic Concepts and Sacrilegious. So if you've ever been to a Catholic event, you've probably seen these socks and t-shirts and mugs, and they're a sponsor and a supporter of our podcast as well. And I'm excited to sit down with Scott to talk about entrepreneurship and business practices and how they influence us in church work, but also how being Catholic influences us for those of us who have our own businesses or are in business, and how they can positively influence us and help us, get the word out there. And so Scott and I dive into some of those details, and this is a conversation you do not want to miss. And if it is a conversation that you absolutely enjoy, again, we encourage you to like us, to leave us a 5-star review, whatever it is that you need to do on those platforms to help us get the word out so that we can help people do church better. Well, anyway, without further delay, here's my conversation with Scott.
Okay.
Scott, welcome to the Church Podcast. How you doing, my friend?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right, Scott, you and I have had the pleasure of getting to know each other quite a bit over the last year or so. But for people who might not be familiar with you or the work that you do, would you mind just kind of telling us a little bit about who you are and how you got to be where you are today?
Yeah, Scott Williams. I am a lay ministry professional turned entrepreneur. So I started full-time in Catholic youth ministry, spent about 10 years doing that. I was left the ministry world as the director of youth ministry for the Archdiocese of Indianapolis. And then my wife and I now own Catholic Concepts, which is a company that develops, manufactures, and produces products for the church. So we're prominently known for our flagship brand, Sacrilegious, which is a Catholic sock company. In fact, the world's largest Catholic sock company. And
That's
and
awesome.
we also do things like custom printing for schools and parishes all around the country as well. We have a full-scale print shop and a lot of different brands that just serve the church.
You know, Scott, I think, one of the reasons I came across you guys is because I just love socks, right? I'm all about different, there was something where I went on a mission trip to Haiti years ago, and there was this guy, Bruce, who just had the most fascinating collection of socks. And I think the whole trip of Haiti, he had a different pair of Avenger socks they wore each day and stuff. And I was like, Bruce, where did you get those? And, he said Amazon. And so it kind of became, I adopted it as my thing. Just over time, people used to gift socks. And I think it was NCYC 2019 or something along those lines where I saw your guys' kiosk, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I got to get some Catholic socks. And my first pair of Sacrilegious socks, because I have multiple pair and I've gone through multiple pair, were St. Christopher socks, which I was even extra excited about because St. Christopher doesn't get much cred these days.
Yeah.
And so on behalf of all Chris's and Christophers, thank you so much for supporting that sainthood. Anyway, enough about my sock collection and everything. Yeah, so you mentioned that you made this transition. Like, what was it about socks? What was it about that type of business? Was it just business in general that kind of led you down this path of entrepreneurship and creating your own company?
Yeah, I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit or bug, whatever you want to call it. When I was in high school, I had a mowing company, and I took that truck that I pulled a trailer on and I put a plow in front of it. And I plowed snow in the wintertime. So entrepreneurship wasn't new to me. And even when I worked in youth ministry at the parish and at the diocesan level, I kind of took it from an entrepreneurial point of view. And I think that's one of the things that made my career path in that more, pretty successful was I didn't think inside the box when it came to ministry. And so yeah, I've always had that inside of me. And it turned out that socks were something I just kind of got interested in. When I went from working in youth ministry at a parish and then into a diocesan level, if anybody's made that kind of journey before, have you ever worked at the diocese before?
No, no,
No?
no.
Okay.
I've met way too many people who've
Yeah.
worked for the diocese to work for the diocese. So,
There's a different level of expectation for dress when you
mhm.
get to those offices. So I'd wear a shirt and tie to work most days, and socks became my fun thing. So I'd wear donut socks on National Donut Day. I'd wear
Right.
my American flag socks around any of the patriotic holidays, and then I just kind of started, matching up time of year with socks that I had. And one day my wife and I were driving to Chicago, and we're like, well, what if we had socks that we put saints on, and we could just celebrate feast days? So we could wear our St. Michael socks on the Feast of the Archangels, or our St. Joseph socks on the Feast of St. Joseph the Worker. So that's where the idea came from, anyways.
Well, and I love that, but it does make it very difficult for me because now I've found the Catholic guilt sort of seep in where I'm like, I can't wear my Advent socks in Pentecost, or like, man,
You got to buy
not this
more.
whole, yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, you do have the liturgical calendar socks, which
That's right.
are definitely appropriate. But again, this conversation could totally side rail just about socks,
Yeah.
but no, I think that's awesome. So you mentioned like that the entrepreneurial spirit has always been a part of you.
Hmm.
I definitely can relate. I used to cut grass and shovel mulch and all that kind of stuff just to see what I could build and everything. Talk about the different ways that you saw that entrepreneurial mindset set in through ministry, like especially parish or diocesan ministry. Like, in what ways did that emerge?
Yeah. In a lot of ways, you get the book and you're supposed to do the thing. You come into a ministry job for the first time, and you learn all the things that the person before you previously uh, did. But I kind of looked at it from an organizational standpoint. I looked at the church, and I put together, okay, what does it look like for ministry in 3, 5, 7, 10 years from now? And I would always look at, like, what does success look like then, and then how do we get to it from today? So that kind of just manifested into, okay, what are the actionable steps that I should take to get there, and what do I need to be able to be tracking to determine that success? I think those are things that I think that I probably have done differently that help me push the needle forward, because you don't know if you're successful if you don't track the work that you're doing. And I I kind of struggled with the mindset. A lot of times people would just get in this routine of saying, well, it takes a while to build a youth ministry program, and we're just not going to focus on this year because of that. Um and numbers aren't the most important things, but they're important. Like, they're important. You should have people come to your stuff, and if people aren't coming to your stuff, then maybe you shouldn't do that stuff. So
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, right? Because I think we talk about numbers in such a like 2D flat sort
Mhm.
of way, right? It's like just attendance, right?
Right.
Or just pure numbers. But it's like, what do those numbers do? Because we know in business, right? It's one thing to have email subscribers, or in your case, clicks on the website, but
Right.
are they converting into sales, right? And
Exactly.
so, granted, not that we're doing this kind of consumer exchange in ministry, but it's like, okay, you have numbers. What are those numbers then doing? And I think that is something that comes from the entrepreneurial mindset,
Yeah.
right? Because
I mean,
it,
from the business side, like, when you get somebody to show up, that's like a converted sale in business,
mhm,
right? Like, that means that you got the sale, the person has showed up to your thing, and you won. That, I mean, yes, you should track that number, but also, what are the things that lead to that? So
right,
I would always think of it in terms of, okay, I need uh 12 volunteers to be able to run this program. What do I need to do to be able to get 12 volunteers for this?
right.
And sometimes that's like number of invitations, number of meetings that I've had coffee with people talking about the ministry work that we're doing. Like, those are the things that eventually convert sales or souls. So there you go.
Yeah, well, and I think it's interesting with all the technology we have. We're in such a statistical in a good way. It can get a little overboard, but
Yeah.
as you were talking about like what those numbers do and the volunteers, I started thinking about sabermetrics with baseball, and I don't know how much of a baseball fan you are, but again, we could geek out on all that stats. But I do think the reason I wanted to ask you about that is because I do think that there's a lot we can learn from a business or an entrepreneurial mindset.
Mhm.
It does come to growing certain aspects of ministry, right? At the
Yeah.
end of the day, Jesus isn't a product. It's not something that we have to manipulate or market, to fool people to do. I mean, it's really truth is truth, but how we look at our approaches and our strategies, I think that's a little bit different.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
So, as you and your wife were deciding to embark on this journey with sacrilegious and everything,
Mhm.
I know that there's probably a lot of people who are watching and listening to this who have considered about starting their own business, whether that's in line with ministry or maybe in a whole different arena. But what were some of the initial challenges? What were some of the daunting things that you guys faced in regards to establishing a business? Because I'm sure it wasn't, or maybe it was day one. You're like, hey, here are our socks, and people were like, they were just falling off the shelves.
I mean, it was definitely challenging. I had never done e-commerce before.
Mm,
It was a totally different world, but there was a lot of excitement behind it as well because we realized that we had this thing. We realized that it had momentum and market credibility. So from that standpoint, it was somewhat easy. What became to be challenging was that it was kind of a delicate balance because on one side, as you probably know, in the ministry world, it's not always the most lucrative career path. So that was kind of like another determining factor for starting a side business is
mm,
most people that have worked in ministry for a long time have also done something else to support that role. That's a whole different story that we could get into another day, but it's also a reality that we currently face. So it became like this delicate balance of I love working in ministry. I mean, I had just completed a master's degree in church management and didn't have any thoughts, ideas, and dreams of moving on to something else. And this kind of just presented itself in a unique way in a way that I really couldn't ignore. I
mm,
also realized that the Holy Spirit was working in the direction that we were heading, and it was something that we couldn't really turn our back to. So as we grew into this more, one of the big challenges was um, not just learning a whole new industry and figuring out how digital marketing works and all of that, but like also just the balance of time because you know it accelerated pretty quickly, but I wasn't prepared to move on from the work that I loved. So I ended up working, in the mornings and into the evening and sometimes on my lunch break, just trying to maintain the business and got to the point where it was, burning the candle at both ends and but still not financially at the level where it totally made sense for us to drop what was a steady paycheck and dive into it full time. So I think that was one of the main things is just figuring all that out.
Now, yeah, and that's that's I think a really pivotal moment for a lot of people. Like I think back to Marathon Youth Ministry, and there have been
Mhm.
moments where I'm like, all right, if this doesn't happen, or if we don't hit this like this goal, how viable is this, or like is this does this become just a guilty pleasure that is going to cause some sacrifice in the family, or like is this something that could support the family? And what's nice to hear is this is something that it sounded like you and your wife were stacking hands on, both on board together, which I think is if you're married and starting your own business, that's
Yeah.
huge to have buy-in from your significant other for sure.
Yeah.
um so like what were some of the thresholds that you felt like, or describe maybe the moment where you felt like, okay, we're actually going to make it, or this is
Mhm.
going to turn the corner and go where we need it to go.
Yeah. The trajectory of where we had been growing was definitely trending in the right direction that it was going to work. It would be tough for me to say like, you know, full confidence the day we made that decision that like it was going to work. But what I did know is that we were at the point where I was working all of those hours and it started to, eat into family time, which I was very concerned about. And that was all just to maintain the business. It wasn't with any focus on growth or what's down the road.
Mm,
So I kind of was faced with the option of, well, do I hire somebody to try to operate and maintain the business full time, or do I jump into it full time myself? And like the answer is always going to be positive on the owners or jumping into it full time, because
sure.
it's your direction, your vision. You can only do so much from the sidelines when your attention is and focus is somewhere else. And for me, it also, like, I at the bottom, my biggest fears were about supporting my family, and I knew that I might not be able to dive back into the exact role that I had worked up to, but I was pretty confident that I could find a job that supported my family, and was pretty confident that I could do that if I really really needed to. But it didn't turn out to be the case. So
Yeah, it's kind of sobering when you think about if the ministry thing doesn't work out, Chick-fil-A, Home Depot, like any of those
yeah,
companies could support
I
you
was
just as well, right? It's
I
like,
was like, I'll work on a factory line and
yeah,
support the family if I really need to. But yeah,
yeah. Again, many conversations for another time. So
yeah. And
we
I don't.
talked.
The other thing I
Oh,
was going to say is, like, I don't think there's ever the right time. So
mm.
like if you wait till all the ducks get in a row, sometimes like you just have to take a chance, jump in, and see where it goes.
It's funny. A good friend of mine, Doug Fields, when he was starting Download Youth Ministry,
Mm,
actually back when it was like more simply youth ministry, and I remember asking him the question. I was like, "How did you know to move on from Saddleback to pursue Download full time?" And he's like,
yeah,
"It just got to a point where the tension was unbearable, right?" And he's like, "You knew that you were." It kind of felt like being married to two people, and that
yeah,
one was going to suffer if you didn't let it go. And
right.
he's like, in the end, I felt like I couldn't make a bad decision except for if I decided to continue forward in the same way. And so that's definitely resonated with me, and I'm sure that's similar to like kind of what you were feeling, right? Or
Oh yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So
I can say that better myself.
yeah, yeah. So we've talked a little bit about how the business world has influenced, maybe can influence ministry, entrepreneurship can influence ministry. But here you are starting a Catholic organization, right? And it's one thing to say, hey, we're Catholic because all of our socks have Catholic themes and saints and
Right.
so forth on it. But when it comes to the Catholic faith influencing the way that you operate the business, what are some ways that you take that into consideration?
Yeah. I truly like to my friend Jeff Scheffelbein has a company called Undivided Life, and um the whole like basis of that is like, you talk about work life balance, which is good in and of itself, but like there really shouldn't be a strong divide on how you live your life. Like, if I'm going to identify as a baptized Catholic, then I have a duty and a responsibility to live in accordance with. I don't have the work version of Scott Williams and the Catholic version of Scott Williams. I'm a Catholic business owner, even if this wasn't the business, right?
Right.
So the beautiful thing is, like, the church gives you a lot of outlines on how to do that well. We do have the privilege of, like, Catholic Concepts has Catholic in the name. There's really no hiding the work that we do. But we also don't, like, all of our employees aren't Catholic, and
Mhm.
we are a for-profit business. Our core values don't have religious themes in them necessarily, but they are, like, driven and developed by our core belief system. So while the way that we do business isn't necessarily overtly Catholic, Catholic social teaching gives us a really good, template to be able to do life well, and also to
Mhm.
do business really well. If you're going to have the good of the other in front of you, then that's how you operate your business too. As a business owner, I have other responsibilities of making sure that the business is profitable and that people have paychecks and all of these other different things that make us successful. But it's all for the good of the organization and all to build up the church when it's all said and done. So we don't shy away from our faith and the work that we're doing. We say that, like, our core focus is to use our unique abilities to serve the church, and we don't shy away from that, but everybody knows that mission and the direction that we're heading. And we've done a pretty good job of making sure that people understand why we exist.
Ever looked down at your feet during mass and thought, oh, my socks could be a little bit holier? Well, Sacrilegious is here to save the day and maybe a couple souls. I know, dad joke. But anyway, Sacrilegious makes Catholic clothing for those of us who take our faith seriously and for those of us that maybe don't take ourselves seriously enough. But it's the perfect blend. It's the perfect blend of humor and holiness seamlessly with seriously punny shirts and socks and mugs and stickers and a whole bunch of different stuff so that you can just be like the coolest and holiest person on the block. Personally, I love the shirts that I have, but I'm a huge sock fan, especially of those St. Peter socks. They're classic rock. All right, enough of the puns. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. So run in your holy socks to sacrilegious.com and start just looking cooler and holier all at the same time. It's the perfect blend. All right, back to the show. That's encouraging to hear. One of the things that you did mention, and I know you and I have talked about this before, is the fact that you guys chose to be for profit, right? Which might make sense or might be a little intuitive considering that you're selling goods and products. But
Right.
I don't know if you face this. I know I have a little bit where a lot of people, because Marathon's a for profit, a lot of people are like, well, why aren't you non for profit? Like, and, so my question for you is, were there any challenges or consideration or what led you to decide to be for profit? Was it simply because with retail, it just makes more sense or?
Yeah. Um, it never really occurred, like crossed my mind to become like a non-profit. Maybe there's a future where there's like a non-profit charitable wing to our business, um, but I've also noticed that there's been a lot of companies that have switched from, nonprofit organizations to for-profit business. And it doesn't necessarily mean like those two words have very different connotations to them.
Mhm.
But you can still have a very strong, um, mission, and the work that you're doing can be nearly exactly the same, but you could probably get 10 times of the things that you want to do done faster if you were a for-profit business versus the red tape of having a nonprofit business. I don't know that for sure. I've never been in nonprofit management or had to deal with that. But if I had to go to like, board meetings and do all of the extra steps, I that'd be tough for me to figure out.
Well, yeah, and as someone who chairs a board of a non-for-profit, you're right. There is a lot of some of that to jump through, and as much as we give our executive director freedom in the ministry that I oversee there, I mean, it's hard because if it's not the red tape of the board, it's some of the government guidelines that they have to follow, and
Yeah,
things with taxes and raising money, spending time raising money in addition to doing the services. So it's definitely a challenge for sure. Um,
exactly.
so with Sacrilegious, right, one might think, well, it's easy to come up with new products, right? Because the, community of saints, I mean, that continues to grow. Tradition, even though it is sacred, it continues to, there's new ways of celebrating and looking at faith. And I'm sure when you guys are at a conference or, people run into you, they're like, Scott, I got a great idea for a sock. Have you ever thought about
No one's
saints?
ever.
Yeah, no one's ever done that to you. So like, how do you guys like manage new product development? Like what goes into, like when you guys are like, you're not just making socks and t-shirts and gear with Catholic stuff on it. There's got to be
Mhm.
intentionality around it. So tell us a little bit about that process of how you guys develop new products, what you say, how you say yes to things and no to things
Mhm.
along those lines.
Yeah, there's definitely intentionality around most of the things we do. Sometimes we just shoot from the hip, but more often, especially on the sock design side, it is a longer process, and there is a lot of intentionality behind it. You're right. We do get a lot of requests. People would stop me at a conference with, their request for the saint that I've never heard of before. The there We kind of take a three-string approach to how we pick the socks. And there, to be honest, like there's just a lot of like very, what I would say, I don't want to use the word popular, well-known saints that we haven't really hit for or
Mm.
have had a design for. And we have like nearly 100 designs at this point, I think. And but there's some that are people just have strong devotions towards that we want to release, we want to have out there. So there's still kind of like this running list of ones that we're definitely going to do that we just haven't put in the lineup yet.
Mm.
The second category that we do is all those people that send us ideas. We put that into a like just a list of we put it in the idea bucket, and then we'll take all of those ideas and we sort through them, and then a lot of times what we'll do is we'll compare that to the number of times that's been searched on our website,
Mm.
so we can look up like in the search key what people are looking for, and that also kind of gives us an indication of what people are looking for that we don't know that they're looking for. And the last one is we really kind of ask our team, like, what do you guys know? What have you heard on the ground? What do you think we should do next? So
Mm.
between those three, we work about gosh, maybe like 6 months out on our production timeline. We try to be that far out anyways, and we already have those six picked out down the road. So every quarter we just add like another three to the next quarter. But when it comes down to actually doing the design, there's also a lot of intentionality in that. So we usually will get we block a time on the calendar, and anybody that wants to come is invited to just do like a brainstorm session. So we get on a whiteboard. Everybody does a little bit of homework beforehand, and we write on the board like, what are colors you think of? What are specific devotions that come from that? What are specific icons or things that we can incorporate into the designs? And we just kind of mash all that up, and then our creative team takes all that information, makes a beautiful design out of it, and turns it into a sock.
That's awesome. And right, I mean, it's not just about what saint you're going to put on the product, but the image that you're going to use, and like you said, the color development and all that
Yep.
kind of stuff for sure. So I would imagine Christmas is probably when you guys get the most sales and everything like that. Outside of Christmas,
Mhm.
what season is like the busiest for y'all?
Yeah, so Christmas is definitely the busiest season. We'll do almost 60% of our e-commerce revenue during that time.
Mhm.
The rest of the year, like Easter is obviously a bigger one for us, and then Father's Day, Mother's Day, and then some of the like sacramental seasons are becoming to have a little bit more of a. We've put some more intentionality behind that, so we
Mhm.
have a line for like confirmation, uh, first communion, things like that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that as a someone who works in a parish and then also has family and friends. It's like, what can we get? Especially, as some of those smaller. I'm not sure if this is true in your neck of the woods, but when I first started in ministry, when I first moved to Baltimore about 20 years ago, there were several different little Catholic bookstores and corner stores
Mhm.
that were around, and it was great to go there and get those gifts and then just with the way of the world, like a lot of them closed down and have vanished and stuff. And well, they're the big book catalogs, and everything. What I do appreciate about what you guys have is the uniqueness, right? And I know we
Right.
talked a little bit about the sock, but there are other kind of unique products that you have there, like the baby onesies, the stickers and everything like that. Again, I would imagine that's you sitting down with your team saying like, okay, what are the different products that we can put out there as
Mhm.
well, right? Um,
Yeah.
not just coming up with what's popular, right, and what will sell, but in what ways are you, and this might sound like a dumb question, but in what ways are you guys intentionally looking to promote that Catholic faith and that conversation through your
Mhm.
products?
Yeah. The one of the our kind of mottos that we have is we like to start conversations through joyful products. So when I worked in youth ministry, I thought that, and this isn't for everybody, but for me, the hardest part about the evangelization process was really starting the conversation. So,
Mm.
um, anytime that I could have a conversation starter, I've had lots of conversation starters around medals that I've worn in the past. People have conversations about scapulars, but socks are also a conversation starter. And the products that we sell don't directly evangelize, like people evangelize, and we want to be able to be that that spark that is able to develop a conversation where somebody can feel more empowered to say, okay, we've, you know, who is that on your shirt? Who is that on your coffee mug? Saint Joseph? Oh, who? Oh, the earthly father of Jesus. Let me tell you a little bit about why I love him
Hmm.
so much, or
Right.
this is how he's important to me. And then you're able to just share your witness, and then from there you can just continue to develop and nurture that relationship in that process.
No, definitely, definitely. Um, so how has, starting Catholic concepts and sacrilegious impacted your personal faith? Like I
Mhm.
mean, other than, I'm sure lots of prayers in regards to are we going to make it and whatnot,
Yeah.
but like, but in what different ways and what are some of the success stories that you've heard in regards to conversation starters with the products?
Yeah. So it's definitely impacted uh my faith, and not just from like you said, being tested, but it has like helped me to more authentically live out my faith in all that I do. So like
Hmm.
whether it's a work meeting or a business meeting, it's helped me to live my faith forward in friendships. Like all of my friends from high school, my buddies know that I run a Catholic business. Like
Hmm.
there's no hiding the identity behind who I am, because it's in all the things that we do. So it's really helped me to try to like just be more authentic in all of the ways that I live, as a father, as a provider, in every way, shape, and form. It's really been beautiful to see how our products have started some of those conversations. Like, for example, the Pope was just gifted some of our socks, which is a fun thing.
Yeah, I saw that.
Uh, yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. Um, but we some of my favorite notes that we get back are when an entire groomsman at a wedding party is wearing all of our socks and our apparel, and I just can't imagine like the number of conversations that must have spun up from that. But we know people that wear socks to all of their cancer treatments, to an important business interview that they've got. They've been hoping for this job and they decided to wear their St. Michael socks. We know people that have obviously been married in our socks, but we've also know people that have been buried in our socks. We know people that have just wanted to be close to the life of the saints, from giving birth literally to going into eternal rest.
Mm. That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and it's funny. Like again, open up my sock drawer, and it's like 50% sacrilegious, and it's like 50% sports teams and different things like that. I got to diversify a little bit, but you guys keep on coming out with new products. It's kind of fun with that. So like how I guess like, and you talked a little bit about this, but besides selling products, how how is Catholic Concepts engaging the Catholic community? I mean, when you look at Catholic Concepts, there's several different other organizations underneath it,
Yeah.
right? Catholic Concepts is the umbrella organization. You've got Four Marks Printing, Sacrilegious, a couple of different things. Like, tell us a little bit about the vision and the dream that you have for Catholic Concepts and different areas that or projects or things that you guys are considering, moving into in the future.
Yeah. The we've been really blessed to develop strong relationships and become a trusted partner for a lot of organizations. The National Federation for Catholic Youth Ministry, we do the merchandise for NCYC. We run the merchandise booth at that event, and we have that same kind of mold and that we've done for the Seek conference
Mm.
that Focus puts on, and we're getting ready and we're already in the process of doing it for the National Eucharistic Congress. So to look at the scale of the church, and like we truly want, like, our goal is to make ministry and evangelization easier. Like, we
Mm.
want ministry professionals to be able to do the work that they are there to do, and not worry about the T-shirt that they have to print, the merchandise that they have to produce. And we've really kind of developed a niche around that, because um, the e-commerce side is like one part of the business, but serving the church through the technology, the equipment, and the people that we have that are doing those other things is like another way. Like it's become my biggest passion. So it's so cool that we get to work on these major projects, that we get to be able to run the merchandise for these events. But into the future, like I want to develop a company that somebody graduates from Franciscan University and they're like, I want to do something incredible for the church, but I don't know what I want to do. I'm not sure if I want to work in parish ministry. I don't have that youth group leader mindset, but I'm a great graphic designer, or I'm a great computer programmer. I want like Catholic Concepts to become top of mind of dream places where people want to work to make a difference in the church. We truly want to rebuild the church, as was asked of St. Francis of Assisi in a real big way. And some of that's through giving people the opportunity to have more evangelistic opportunities through merchandise. Some of that is helping parishes. I mean, you know as well as any, like the number of people that are working in parishes is going down, and the number of things they're being asked to do is growing. Mm-hmm. And if we can develop products, services that can serve the church in a unique way, that's something that's really, really interesting to me.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I one thing that you were mentioning is the student that graduates from college that wants to serve the church, but maybe not necessarily in line with parish ministry or diocesan ministry, but in some kind of skill set. I think there's kind of a renaissance going on, like not just with your organization, but other organizations out there who are doing things, whether it's commerce or media or things along those lines, looking to evangelize, but also looking to utilize people's creative gifts, entrepreneurial gifts, and things along those lines. And I love parish ministry. I'm so glad I've given like 20 years of my life to it, but it's also exciting to know that there's other ways to live out my Catholic faith in a professional setting that doesn't just have to take place in the local church.
Absolutely. 100%.
Hey, sorry. I know another ad. All right. Yep. We'll get back to the show. Trust me. But I wanted to take some time to talk about the Church Podcast premium subscription. That's right. We have a premium subscription where when you sign up for CP Plus, you not only get episodes earlier, you not only get away from these ads and these annoying ads and everything, but we're going to send you a free subscription to MYM Premium where you get videos and downloadable resources for you and your team so you can get better at ministry. You also will get producer credits, and there's nothing better than producer credits, right? Especially for a niche podcast like this one. So why wait for that? Also, when you sign up for CP Plus, we're going to give you 10% off your first custom t-shirt order at Foremarks Printing, one of our sponsors here at the Church Podcast. But the best part, when you sign up for CP Plus, is that 50% of your proceeds, 50% of what you give towards CP Plus each month, goes towards the Ministry Training Source, which is an organization that's focused on research for professional ministry. So even if you're not a professional minister, you're helping us figure out how we can support and build up the profession of lay ecclesial ministry. So what do you have to do? Just go to thechurchpodcast.org and scroll down and you'll see a box for the Church Podcast Plus premium subscription. And that's all you got to do. So instead of buying a third of a pizza, sign up for a monthly subscription at thechurchpodcast.org. Anyway, enough for me. Back to the show. Awesome. All right. So Scott, so appreciative of you being on the show, and we're coming to that time that I personally enjoy. This is the selfish Chris Wesley time where I get to ask all of my guests the final 5 questions. 5 questions that I sent to you ahead of time that I ask all of our guests. Are you ready for them?
I'm ready.
Bring
them on.
All right. So question number 1, in addition to prayer, what is one tangible tool or resource that has helped you be your most productive self?
This sounds funny, but like recently or like forever?
Forever.
I can go 2 different directions.
You could go wherever. It could be something you used when you were 5 or, or 5 days ago. So.
Yeah. Um, I have been this sounds so stupid, but like the Google Workspace has
Okay.
helped me become wildly productive. I I feel like I've gone through phases of ways to like organize and make productivity work.
Mm.
And sometimes it's been the Michael Hyatt full focus planner. Sometimes it's like very analog like that.
Mm.
Sometimes it has been more complex, like to do list apps, things like that. It turns out like email and then like task features within that and being able to like I've committed myself to like no longer allowing my inbox and my email to be a to-do list.
Yeah.
And when I get an email, so like I try to process emails more than just like live in an inbox now. So I will
Right.
set aside time to go through my inbox. And if this is a I need to do something about this, there's a little checkbox there, and I make it a task. And then I take that task and I assign it to a time that I have open on my calendar. And then I try to do it during that time. And if I don't do that during that time, then I can move that task to another area. Then I can click on it and I can open the email and I can uh, do that thing that I was supposed to do. So that's one thing. The other part of it is we use a an organizational system within our business that's called the EOS model. A lot of nonprofits use it too, but it's based off of a book called Traction. And I was
Mm.
very fortunate that I had several mentors in my life recommend this book to me. But it gives the framework of how to develop the EOS system, which is the Entrepreneur's operating system. Similar to how like your computer only has one operating system,
Mm.
you develop your business around one operating system because it
Interesting.
can only speak that one language. And it a lot of the things that I've talked about today, like you set a 10-year target of what you want your business to look like in 10 years, and then you look at a 3-year picture. What does that actually need to look like in 3 years to be able to hit that 10-year target? And then you say, okay, if we're going to hit that 3-year picture, what do we need to do in the next year? Okay, if we're going to hit our 1-year goals, what do we need to do in the next 90 days to make those happen? And then every week we check in on what are those things that we have to do in those next 90 days to make that happen. Uh, and that framework has been phenomenal in helping our team like meet, exceed, and achieve goals
Mm.
in a massive, massive way. And truth be told, like I think if parishes implemented the EOS system and you just took out like entrepreneur and you just made it priests or pastors operating system, you'd have to call it a POS at that point. Uh, but maybe we come up with a different acronym. I don't know. Uh, but I truly think that that framework could revolutionize the way that we know church.
Well, and I'm so glad you brought that up because, when it comes to productivity systems, I think, whether it's something like Google Workspace, like you said, or the
Mm-hmm.
EOS system, um, a lot of us, if we're not careful, will buy into it, purchase it, subscribe to it, or whatnot. But it really does take practice and work to implement that, right? I'm sure, like,
Yeah.
first time you were reading that book, it wasn't just like, oh, here we go, like, write it down, everyone absorbs it. But it
Mm-hmm.
took practice to figure it out, especially in your paradigm. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was fortunate enough to like be introduced to it at an early stage, but
Hmm.
you have to have buy-in from everybody that's involved.
Right.
But then you have to actually like stick to it and have an implementation plan where, okay, step one, we're going to do this part of it, and then step two, we're going to do this part of it, and we're going to build up. We're going to have a timeline of fully implementing the whole process. Um, yeah, but part of that, and I kind of gave like two different aspects of that. One, like the first part was the productivity, like how do I be my most productive self, and then the traction part of that is like how do I operate a productive business,
Mm.
and those are two very very different things because I'm less concerned about how productive I am personally, and more my role is more focused on how do I make sure that my team is fully equipped to be able to do the work that we need to do, and I can really focus in on the things that I'm really good at or absolutely need my attention. And I think that there's some parallels there in like lay ecclesial ministry too.
No, for sure. Because what you're talking about is something I think a lot of us struggle with when we get volunteers or even staff. It's like, how do I go from that solopreneur, right? That individual leader to a manager?
Hmm.
Because my title at the parish is Director of Formation Ministries. And a lot of people are like, oh, you do youth ministry, children's ministry. And yes, I oversee that. But my most important role, and I tell my team this, my most important role is to help my team, manage their projects and time and success. Because if they're not doing that, then all my capacity to do the other things that I want to do or need to do disappears. And so
Absolutely.
for and that's such a huge mindset shift. Whether you have volunteers or staff, like to do that is like when you get into this role of leadership, it's not just about you doing these things. Granted, there's integrity in that, but it's also managing and supervising and encouraging your team so that they can continue to do what God's called them to do as well.
Absolutely.
Definitely. All right. Great answer. All right. So question number 2. What are you currently reading or watching or listening to that everyone else you feel like has to experience? This could be your guilty pleasure. This could be something that's changed your business, your life, your marriage. But what's something that you feel like is just you just have to share with everybody?
Yeah. The book that I'm reading most recently, and I just started it, but like the first couple of chapters are definitely trending in the right direction. But it's a book called All In by Mike Mala. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but it begins with an M.
All right.
Mike M. And it really guides entrepreneurs or business leaders in kind of what I talked about before of being able to like focus in on the things that you're good at, but then like recruiting, retaining talent of the things that you're not great at, and making sure that those two things align for
Mm,
your long-term goals, and really just being all in on your employees or your team or your staff or your volunteers. It also is where this process called a vivid vision is from. And the way a vivid vision works is you look down the road a certain period of time, let's call it 5 years, and you write out this like really detailed roadmap of what that looks like. So basically, like first person narrative of walking into the building, or what
mm,
you woke up this way. And I've done this exercise twice in my business owner career, but basically walking through step by step in a narrative of what my day looks like at that particular time in your business. And it's kind of eerie, but like a really fun exercise to be able to, I kind of struggle with the laying out the vision down the road kind of person. And I have it here, and my expectation is that you can read my mind and know what my vision is.
yep.
Still working on that. But if I have like an exercise where I can write it down and make it more tangible, and we can then point to that,
Mm.
it's been really helpful to get people to understand the direction and the vision we're headed.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'll definitely have to check that out. And we'll have show notes to um, get to the link of All In and figure out who this author is for sure. But all right, this is my favorite question to ask people. What's the worst ministry or leadership advice that you've gotten from someone regarding the work that you do?
Yeah. And you actually just touched on it a little bit, but I think the worst advice that I ever got, that it was my ministry.
Mm,
Um, like I've been called to work in this ministry, but you absolutely have to have buy-in from people in your parish to be able to do that. And you have to be able to spend more time like developing people to do the work than actually trying to do the work. If you're just you know, I think it's easy to get into the mindset of I have to do all of these things. But like as a staff person at a parish, my responsibility is to figure out a way to make it happen, not do it all myself.
yeah, amen to that for sure. For sure. Definitely. So, keeping that in mind, what is, if you had one message for someone who is new to whether it's ecclesial ministry or just ministry in general, starting out in the field, what would that be?
Yeah. I the it's honestly going down that same path, but um be all in on your volunteers. I mean, we
Hmm.
just talked about the book, like
Yeah.
all in for on employees, but be all in on your volunteers. get your group of people together to be able to move mountains in your parish community. Call them, equip them, and send them forth and let them do the work that they're being called to do. And I think that like relational ministry has its place, but it doesn't all need to be done by the staff person at the parish. And sometimes you have to like check your ego at the door and like allow yourself to have the humility to do those things, but also look at your calendar. A lot of people say like, if you look at a budget or a balance sheet, you'll see where things are important. You can say the same thing about your calendar.
Mhm.
Like if the time that you're spending doesn't involve like directly trying to enrich and equip like the people to do the work of ministry in your parish, there's something wrong with your schedule, and you need to spend more time investing in people like the same way that Jesus did.
Yeah, amen to that. Amen to that. And so that brings us to our final question, Scott. So congratulations, you've made it through just to this last question. But what is your biggest hope for the church at this time?
Yeah, I am all jazzed up on the National Eucharistic Congress. We also like we're invested in it from a business perspective, but I also live in Indianapolis, and the Congress is 15 minutes from where I'm sitting right now.
That's awesome.
And I'm so excited for this revival and what revival means long term, and what the church can truly become through knowing and embracing the Eucharist. And I don't know exactly what that means yet, but I am so excited that like this emphasis has been put on this most important thing at this particular time. And I'm very open to seeing where God leads me, our family, in the midst of all this.
Yeah,
Is this airing before or after the revival?
I think it's going to air right at the time of it. So, but
Sweet.
or slightly before at least. So, if people are listening to this, it's probably too late unless they, I doubt they'll be scalping tickets outside of, Lucas Oil Stadium. But no,
Maybe. I don't
yeah,
know.
maybe. Who knows? Who knows?
That always surprised me. We went to the Indy 500 last weekend,
Mhm.
and like there was a bunch of people out there scalping tickets, and I was like, I don't remember the last time I got a physical ticket to something.
Yeah, yeah,
But
I'd be very skeptical of that for sure.
yeah,
Because it's like, whose printout is this? Like,
yeah,
if they were handing out printouts, maybe, but like then it's like, is that a photocopy? But hey, man, you being in Indianapolis, you're kind of in the hub of a lot of major Catholic stuff going on, whether it's
yeah.
NCYC or the Eucharistic Revival and everything. So it's definitely got to be exciting. And I look forward to the next time we cross paths, for sure. And thank you so much for being on the show. I really do appreciate it. Before we sign off, where is a great place for people to find you or connect with you or Catholic Concepts if they want to learn more?
Yeah, CatholicConcepts.com is the kind of the central hub of where you can be pointed to all the great things that we're doing, and then I'm on LinkedIn if anybody wants to look me up there. I'll write back.
Yeah, definitely. LinkedIn is where all the cool people are nowadays. So that's what I hear. So
Yeah, I'm trying to bring back LinkedIn. It's great.
yeah, it's nice to have something a little bit more moralistic than some of the
Yeah.
other platforms. But enough of that. Anyway, Scott, always a pleasure to talk with you, man, and to really do appreciate you being on the show. And thanks for all you do.
Thanks, brother. It's been an absolute joy.
Okay.
This has been a production of Marathon Youth Ministry, the church podcast talking all things ministry, produced by Stephen Herrera and Be Well Creative. Music provided by Loco Joseph. No animals were hurt in the production of this podcast. Please be sure to tip your waiters. See you next time.